The great council chamber stretched wide and tall, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Lights floated above, casting soft glows on the hundreds of representatives who had gathered for the quarterly session. The air hummed with translation devices, turning thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Taiho walked into the chamber with his usual calm steps. His dark suit was neat and simple. Behind him, his deputy Hana followed, carrying a small data pad. They took their seats in the human section, a row of chairs marked with Earth's blue and green symbol. The session began like always. The Vrelian speaker, a tall creature with silver skin, called the meeting to order. One by one, species gave their reports. The Crithians talked about their mining operations. The Phylaxians discussed trade routes. Each speech lasted between 10 and 30 minutes. Then it was humanity's turn. For 200 years, this moment had been special. Humans always had something to say. They proposed new ideas. They questioned old rules. They talked about peace, about progress, about working together. Sometimes they talked so much that other species would roll their eyes or shuffle in their seats. But everyone listened because human ideas usually worked. The Vrelian speaker looked at Taiho. The human delegation may now present their quarterly report and proposals. Taiho stood up. The chamber grew quiet. Representatives leaned forward. Some had prepared responses to whatever wild idea the humans would suggest this time. Last quarter, they had proposed a joint scientific station. The quarter before, a new peace treaty framework. Taiho stood there for 3 seconds. Then he spoke. Humanity abstains from comment. His voice was clear and calm. He sat back down. The silence that followed was different from before. It felt heavy, confused. The Vrelian speaker's skin flickered, which meant he was surprised. He checked his device, thinking maybe there was a translation error. Ambassador Taiho, the speaker said slowly, "Do you wish to present your quarterly report?" Taiho stood again. "Our report has been filed in the official records. We have nothing additional to present." He sat down. Hana beside him showed no expression. She simply looked forward, her hands folded on her lap. The Vrelian speaker did not know what to do. In 200 years of human membership, this had never happened. He moved on to the next item on the agenda. A Crithian counselor, a being that looked like a large insect made of blue crystal, decided to test the humans. He stood and spoke about how human expansion into the outer colonies was causing problems. He used strong words, the kind that usually made humans jump up to defend themselves or explain their position. Taiho looked at the Crithian. He nodded once very slightly. That was all. The Crithian waited. Everyone waited. Taiho said nothing. "Do the humans have a response?" the Vrelian speaker asked. "No," Taiho said simply. The session continued, but nobody could focus. Every few minutes, someone would glance at the human section. Taiho and Hana sat perfectly still. They were not angry. They were not upset. They were just quiet. When the session ended 3 hours later, the humans had spoken exactly 18 words total. All of them were simple responses. No. Yes. Noted. We abstain. As beings filed out of the chamber, the whispers started. Groups formed in the hallways, speaking in low voices. What was wrong with the humans? Were they sick? Was this some kind of protest? A Phylaxian representative, a creature with purple fur and 6 arms, approached Taiho in the corridor. "Ambassador, is everything all right? Your government, your people, are they well?" Taiho smiled. It was a polite smile, the kind that showed no real emotion. "Everything is fine. Thank you for your concern. But you said nothing in there. You always have so much to say." "Today we had nothing to say," Taiho replied. He bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect, and walked away. Hana followed him. They moved through the corridors while other representatives stared. Some tried to stop them with questions, but Taiho's answers were all the same. Short, polite, empty. Back in the human quarters, Hana finally spoke. "They are confused." "Good," Taiho said, looking out the window at the stars. His face showed nothing, but his eyes were tired. Tired of talking, tired of explaining, tired of offering help that was taken for granted. "How long do we maintain the silence?" Hana asked. Taiho was quiet for a moment. "Until they understand what they had, or until we stop caring if they ever do." Outside, the galaxy continued turning, but something had changed. Something small and quiet, but also huge. Humanity, the species that never stopped talking, had decided to be silent. And in that silence, there was a message that nobody wanted to hear. The message was simple. Maybe we are done trying to help you. 3 weeks passed since the council session, and the silence grew deeper. All across the galaxy, human representatives continued their strange, quiet behavior. It was not just Taiho. It was every human diplomat, every human officer, every human official. On the Outer Rim station, Ambassador Jiho attended his morning meetings like always. He arrived on time, sat in his chair, and listened to everything. But when others asked for his thoughts, he would say things like, "Thank you for sharing," or, "We will note your concerns." His voice was pleasant, but his words meant nothing. The station commander, a Vrelian named Court, tried everything to get Jiho to really talk. He invited him to lunch. He asked about human culture. He even asked about Earth's weather. Jiho answered every question, but his answers were short and polite. There was no warmth, no extra information, no friendly conversation. Just basic politeness like talking to a machine. In the Sagittarius sector, Commander Suman did something that shocked everyone. She recalled the entire human fleet from the joint military exercises. These exercises had been happening for 70 years. Humans, Crithians, and Phylaxians trained together, learned together, prepared together for possible threats from unknown space. When the Crithian admiral asked why she was leaving, Suman sent a formal message. The human defense fleet is returning to assigned patrol routes. We thank our partners for their cooperation. That was all. No explanation. No apology. No promise to return next year. The Crithian admiral sent 3 more messages, each one more urgent. Suman responded to each one with similar brief statements. Professional, empty, final. Trade Captain Doyen had been running supply routes through the Gamma Corridor for 15 years. He was famous among aliens for his friendly nature. He would have dinner with portmasters, share jokes with dock workers, and trade stories with other captains. His ship, the Morning Light, was welcome at every station, but not anymore. Doyen still docked at the stations. He still delivered his cargo on time, but he refused all social invitations. When the Phylaxian portmaster invited him to the annual celebration dinner, Doyen sent a message. "Thank you for the invitation. I must respectfully decline." He did not give a reason. The portmaster was hurt. They had been friends for years. She sent another message asking if she had done something wrong. Doyen replied, "You have done nothing wrong. I simply cannot attend. Safe travels." Again, polite words that said nothing. At the Science Cooperation Center on Nexus Prime, researcher Yunji stopped attending the daily discussion groups. She had been one of the most active participants, always excited to share ideas and hear about others' work. Now she came to the lab, did her research, submitted her required reports, and left. She spoke to no one unless they spoke to her first. A Crithian colleague approached her one day. "Unji, we miss you at the discussions. Your ideas were always so interesting." "Thank you," Yunji said, not looking up from her work. "Will you come back to the group? I'm very busy with my own projects now. Please excuse me." She walked away before he could say more. All across human space, the pattern was the same. Humans were present but absent. They fulfilled every duty, met every requirement, and broke no rules. But they gave nothing extra. No friendship. No enthusiasm. No care. The galaxy began to panic in small ways. Messages flew between governments. What was happening to humanity? Were they preparing for something? Were they angry? Were they sick with some strange disease that made them cold? Some species sent spies to watch human colonies. The spies reported back with confusion. The humans seemed fine. Better than fine, actually. On Earth, cities were growing. On Mars, new buildings rose into the red sky. On the human colony worlds, people walked the streets, laughed, worked, and lived normal lives. But when aliens visited these places, the humans were polite and distant. Shop owners would sell goods but not chat. Restaurant servers would bring food but not stay to talk. Human children would wave at aliens but not approach them. A Phylaxian tourist on Earth wrote in his travel log, "The humans are like a door that looks open but is actually closed. You can see inside but you cannot enter." The Galactic News Network started reporting on the silence. Some called it the human withdrawal. Others called it the Great Quiet. Everyone had theories. Maybe humanity was preparing for war. Maybe they had discovered something terrible and were keeping it secret. Maybe they were building some kind of superweapon. But the humans said nothing to confirm or deny any theory. When journalists tried to interview human officials, they got the same response. We have no comment at this time. Thank you for your interest. Counselor Taiho continued attending every council session. He sat in his seat, Hana beside him. They listened to everything. They voted when required, but they never volunteered information, never proposed new ideas, never joined debates. In the fourth week, the Vrelian speaker tried a direct approach. Ambassador Taiho, the council would appreciate hearing human perspectives on the current trade disputes. Taiho stood. Humanity trusts the council to resolve the trade disputes according to established law. We have no additional input. He sat down. The chamber was silent. That was the longest statement Taiho had made in a month, and it was just a polite way of saying not our problem. The other representatives looked at each other. A terrible thought was beginning to form in their minds. What if this was not temporary? What if the humans had decided to be this way forever? What if humanity, the species that had been the voice of progress and hope for 2 centuries, had simply stopped caring about the rest of the galaxy? That night, emergency meetings were called in capitals across the galaxy. Leaders argued about what to do. Some said to ignore the humans until they got bored and started talking again. Others said to demand an explanation. A few, the wisest ones, said something that frightened everyone. Maybe we should figure out why they stopped talking in the first place. But nobody wanted to admit that maybe, just maybe, humanity had a good reason to be silent. The Galactic Council made a decision. They needed to understand what was happening with humanity. They chose a team of investigators led by Velman, a Crithian known for his careful and logical mind. His job was simple: go to human space and find out what they were planning. Velman had theories. Maybe the humans were building secret weapons. Maybe they were forming new alliances. Maybe they had found some ancient alien technology and were keeping it for themselves. Whatever it was, he would find it. His team arrived at Earth after a week of travel. The humans allowed them to land without any trouble. In fact, the human customs officer at the spaceport was perfectly polite. "Welcome to Earth. Please enjoy your visit." The words were friendly, but the smile did not reach the eyes. Velman started his investigation in Geneva, where the human government kept many of its central offices. He requested meetings with officials. Every request was approved. Every official showed up on time. Every question was answered. But Velman felt like he was trying to grab smoke. When he asked about military activities, the defense minister showed him public records. "Our fleet is maintaining standard patrol routes. All deployments are within treaty agreements." True, but it told him nothing. When he asked about scientific research, the science director gave him published papers. "All breakthrough research is available in our public databases." Also true, but Velman noticed something. The really interesting papers were now being published in Korean, with no translations offered. He tried a different approach. He visited human cities, observing daily life. In New Seoul, he walked the streets and watched. The city was beautiful and busy. Humans rushed to work, talked on their communication devices, bought food from street vendors. Everything seemed normal. But when Velman tried to interview people, something strange happened. They were polite but uninterested. A human engineer named Yejun agreed to talk. He explained his work on a new water purification system. His eyes lit up when he described the technology. But when Velman asked if this technology would be shared with other species, Yejun's enthusiasm vanished. "That will be decided by the appropriate officials," he said flatly. Velman visited a research center where scientist Minji worked. She was developing new theories about faster-than-light travel. Her work was brilliant, possibly the most advanced in the galaxy. Velman asked if she would present it at the next Galactic Science Conference. "I have not decided yet," Minji said. "I am very busy with my research." "But this could benefit the entire galaxy," Velman pressed. Minji looked at him with calm eyes. "Yes, it could. Excuse me, I need to return to my work." She walked away, leaving Velman standing in the hallway. He tried interviewing human children at a school. Surely they would be more open. But even the children had learned the new way. When he asked what they wanted to be when they grew up, they answered enthusiastically. When he asked if they wanted to travel and meet aliens, They said maybe and changed the subject. Frustrated, Velman traveled to the colony world of Nova Sol. This was one of humanity's newest and most successful colonies. Governor Nari agreed to meet with him. She was a middle-aged woman with gray in her hair and a calm expression. "Governor, the galaxy is concerned about humanity's recent behavior," Velman said directly. "I understand," Nari replied. "Would you like some tea?" They sat in her office drinking tea. Velman asked about military buildups. There were none. He asked about secret projects. Nari showed him the colony's development plans. Everything was focused on improving life for human colonists. Roads and schools, hospitals, farms. But what about cooperation with other species? Velman asked. "We maintain all trade agreements and treaties," Nari said. "We welcome alien visitors according to our immigration policies. Your immigration policies have become much more strict. We have the right to control our borders," Nari said pleasantly. "As does every species." Velman felt like he was talking to a wall made of pillows. Everything she said was reasonable, but it revealed nothing. He tried one more question. "Governor, why has humanity changed so much in the past 2 months?" Nari smiled. It was not a mean smile or a cold smile. It was just distant. "We have not changed, investigator. We are simply taking time to focus inward. Every species deserves time to care for their own people, don't you think?" "But humanity has always cared about the whole galaxy. Did we?" Nari asked softly. "Or did we care and the galaxy simply accepted it without noticing?" She stood up. "Thank you for visiting Nova Sol. I hope you found what you were looking for." Velman knew he was being dismissed. He left the governor's office feeling more confused than when he arrived. He spent 2 more weeks investigating. He visited human military bases and saw soldiers training. He visited human factories and saw workers building ships and machines. He visited human universities and saw students learning. Everything was normal. Too normal. There were no secret weapons, no hidden armies, no mysterious projects, just humans doing human things, living human lives, and politely ignoring the rest of the galaxy. Velman returned to the Galactic Council and presented his report. The chamber was packed with anxious representatives, all waiting to hear about humanity's sinister plans. Velman stood before them and spoke clearly. "I found nothing," he said. "No weapons, no plots, no schemes. Then what are they doing?" demanded the Vrelian speaker. Velman hesitated. How could he explain what he had felt? How could he describe the way humans looked through aliens instead of at them? Finally, he found the words. "They have not reduced their capabilities. They have simply stopped sharing them. Humanity is thriving, growing, advancing, but they are doing it for themselves now, not for us." The silence in the chamber was complete. Someone in the back asked the question everyone was thinking. "Why?" Velman looked at the council members. "I believe that is the wrong question. The right question is, why did they ever care about us in the first place? And what did we do to make them stop?" Nobody wanted to answer that. 3 months into the silence, the Galactic Council discovered something terrible. They needed humanity more than they had ever realized. The first crisis started in the Beltar system. 2 mining companies, one Vrelian and one Phylaxian, both claimed the same asteroid field. For 30 years, this dispute had threatened to become violent. For 30 years, human mediators had managed to keep both sides talking instead of fighting. Every time tensions rose, a human diplomat would step in with a clever compromise or a new solution. Now, when the Vrelians and Phylaxians started arguing again, they waited for the humans to help. Ambassador Tejo was contacted by both sides. His response was identical to both. "Humanity respects the rights of all parties to resolve their disputes according to galactic law. We wish you success." That was all. No offer to mediate, no suggestion of compromise, nothing. The Vrelians and Phylaxians stared at their communication screens in shock. For the first time in 3 decades, they were on their own. Within 2 weeks, both sides had moved warships into position. The council called emergency meetings. They begged Tejo to intervene. He sat in his chair, listening politely. When they finished, he stood and said, "Humanity will respect whatever decision the council makes." Then he sat down again. The words were diplomatic and proper. But everyone heard the real message. This is not our problem anymore. The council tried to find other mediators. A Crithian diplomat attempted to negotiate. but did not understand the cultural differences between Vrelians and Phylaxians. He accidentally insulted both sides. A Nexian peacekeeper tried next, but she could not find any middle ground. Humans had always made it look easy. It was not easy. The Beltar crisis was just the beginning. All across the galaxy, problems that humanity had been quietly managing started to surface. It was like removing a keystone from an arch. Suddenly, everything began to crumble. The Galactic Science Initiative fell apart. For 80 years, this program had coordinated research between different species. Humans had done most of the organizing work, sending countless messages, arranging meetings, sharing data, and keeping everyone connected. Now that work simply stopped. Human scientist Yunji stopped sending her weekly research summaries. When asked why, she replied, "My research is available in the public database. Please feel free to access it." But her papers were in Korean now and highly technical. Other species could not understand them without human help, and no humans were offering to help. The early warning system for cosmic threats started developing blind spots. The system used telescopes and sensors from dozens of species, all sharing data. Humans operated 30% of these sensors. Research Director Minji quietly stopped sharing humanity's telescope data with the Galactic Network. When the Council requested access, she sent a formal response. Human astronomical research is funded by human taxpayers for human purposes. We are reallocating resources to internal projects. We apologize for any inconvenience. The Council panicked. What if an asteroid was heading toward an inhabited planet? What if a dangerous anomaly appeared? Without the human data, they might not see it coming until too late. They offered to pay for access. Minji's response was polite. "We appreciate the offer, but must decline. Our resources are fully allocated." Trade routes began to destabilize. For decades, human ships had carried not just their own goods, but messages, small packages, and urgent supplies between species. Captain Doyen and thousands of other human traders had been the galaxy's informal postal service. They did it out of kindness, charging nothing extra. Now Doyun's ship Morning Light still ran its routes. But when a Phylaxian asked him to carry an urgent medical supply to a nearby station, Doyen checked his schedule. "I am not authorized to deviate from my assigned route. I suggest you contact a dedicated courier service." The medical supply took 3 extra days to arrive. A child died waiting for it. The council chambers themselves changed. For 200 years, human voices had filled the halls with energy and ideas. They had questioned inefficient policies, proposed new programs, challenged unfair rules, and pushed everyone to be better. Other species had often found it annoying. Now they realized that the annoying humans had been the engine that drove progress. Without humans actively participating, council sessions became slow and boring. Species voted the way they always voted. Old alliances held firm. New ideas were viewed with suspicion. Nothing changed. Nothing improved. The galaxy was stuck. Intelligence reports arrived at council offices every day now, and they were all frightening. Human colonies were consolidating. Admiral Hajun had reorganized the human fleet. Ships that had been scattered across the galaxy on joint missions were being recalled to human space. The Admiral gave a single explanation: redeployment for optimal coverage of human territories. On Mars, Director Jiwoo was building something massive. Satellite images showed huge construction projects, but strange interference made it impossible to see details. When asked about it, Jiwoo said, "We are upgrading our infrastructure. It is an internal matter." The paranoia grew. Some species were convinced humans were preparing for war. Others thought they were building a superweapon. A few believed humans had made contact with some unknown power and were getting ready to betray the council. But the wisest voices, the ones people did not want to hear, suggested something else. Maybe humanity was not preparing to attack. Maybe they were preparing to leave. Not physically, but emotionally. Maybe they were building walls, turning inward, and deciding that the galaxy was not worth their time anymore. That possibility terrified the council more than any weapon could, because they were finally realizing the truth. For 200 years, humanity had been holding the galaxy together. Not with force, not with threats, but with effort, care, and endless tireless work. Humans had mediated disputes. Humans had shared technology. Humans had coordinated projects. Humans had died in other species' wars. Humans had given and given and given, and the galaxy had taken it all without saying thank you, without noticing, without caring. Now the giving had stopped. and the galaxy was discovering that it had been built on human goodwill, like a house built on sand. When the sand shifted, everything started to fall. Counselor Taiho sat in every session watching it happen. His face showed nothing. But sometimes late at night in the human quarters, Hana would find him looking out at the stars. Once she asked, "Do you think they will understand?" Taiho was quiet for a long time. Finally he said, "Eventually, when they have lost enough." 6 months after the silence began, the Galactic Council could not take it anymore. They demanded a formal inquiry. They needed answers. They needed to understand what humanity wanted, what they were planning, what they were hiding. Most of all, they needed the humans to go back to the way they were before. The council chamber was more crowded than it had ever been. Representatives from over 300 species packed the seats. Even species that rarely attended council meetings came. Some stood along the walls. Others floated near the ceiling. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans would say. Ambassador Taiho arrived exactly on time. He walked down the center aisle with his small delegation. Deputy Hana walked beside him, her expression calm. Behind them came Ambassador Jiho from the Outer Rim Station, and a fourth human that many had not seen before. His name was Siwu, and he was known as one of humanity's best strategists. His presence made some representatives nervous. The humans took their seats. Taiho folded his hands and waited. The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations. Then the Vrelian speaker called for silence. His skin flickered with stress colors. "Ambassador Taiho," the speaker began, "this council has summoned you to answer questions about humanity's recent actions. We demand to know your intentions." "We are here to answer questions," Taiho said simply. For 10 minutes it was chaos. Representatives shouted accusations from every direction. The Crithians claimed humans were preparing for war. The Phylaxians said humans were developing superweapons. The Nexians believed humans had made secret alliances. The Vrelians accused humans of abandoning their responsibilities. Through it all, Taiho sat quietly. He did not interrupt. He did not defend. He did not react. He simply waited. Beside him, Hana, Jiho, and Siwu were equally still. Finally, when the accusations slowed, Taiho raised his hand. The gesture was small, but the entire chamber went silent. 300 species held their breath, waiting for the answer that would explain everything. Taiho stood. He looked around the chamber slowly, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of worlds. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the room. "For 200 years, he began, humanity has talked. We have proposed solutions to your conflicts. We have shared our technology freely, asking nothing in return. We have sent our children to die in your wars. We have mediated your disputes at 3 a.m, working without sleep because peace was more important than rest." He paused. The chamber was absolutely silent. "We have been told many things during these 200 years. We have been told we are too loud, too aggressive, too idealistic, too naive, too young to understand the galaxy's complexities, too different to truly fit in. We have been told to mind our own business, to stop pushing our values on others, to accept that this is how things are done." A few representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Taiho continued. "We have been criticized when we helped and criticized when we did not help enough. We have given our best ideas freely, only to watch other species take credit for them. We have bled for this council, and we have been thanked with suspicion and resentment." His voice remained calm, but something in his eyes had changed. Something cold. So we stopped talking. We decided to listen instead, to observe, to learn what the galaxy really thought of us when we were not solving everyone's problems. The Crithian counselor could not stay quiet. She stood up, her crystalline body reflecting the chamber lights. "And what did you learn?" she demanded. Taiho looked at her directly. "We learned that you do not actually want our solutions. You want us to solve your problems while you maintain control. You want our innovation without our influence. You want our sacrifice without giving us respect. You want us to bleed, but you do not want to see us as equals." The chamber erupted again. Some representatives tried to deny it. Others shouted that it was not true. A Phylaxian stood and yelled, "We have always valued humanity." Taiho waited for quiet. When it came, he spoke again. "Then why did none of you notice how much work we were doing until we stopped doing it? Why did none of you say thank you? Why did you complain about our involvement but panic when we withdrew?" No one had an answer. Humanity has made a decision, Taiho said. We will fulfill our treaty obligations. Every single one. We will attend every required meeting. We will respond to every formal request. We will maintain our commitments. Hope sparked in the chamber. Maybe the humans were coming back. Maybe things would return to normal. Then Taiho said the words that killed that hope. Nothing more. Nothing less. The silence was crushing. Finally, the Vrelian speaker found his voice. You cannot just abandon the galaxy. We are not abandoning anyone, Taiho replied. We are simply respecting your wishes. You did not want us involved in your affairs. So we are not involved. You wanted us to stop pushing our ideas. So we stopped. You wanted us to be less present. So we are less present. But the galaxy needs you, someone shouted from the back. Taiho's expression did not change. Does it? For 200 years we thought we were helping. But you told us over and over that we were interfering, that we were too much, that we should step back. So we did. He paused. What you needed was our work. What you did not want was us. Siwu stood up beside Taiho. When he spoke, his voice was harder than Taiho's. Let me be very clear about what happens now. Human ships will fly human routes. Human scientists will research human questions. Human diplomats will protect human interests. Human soldiers will defend human space. We will do our jobs. We will follow the law. We will harm no one. But, prompted a Nexian representative nervously, but we will not care about your problems anymore. Siwu finished. You wanted independence from human interference. Congratulations, you have it. Hana stood next. Her voice was softer but somehow more final. We gave you 200 years of our best efforts. We gave you our brilliance, our compassion, our lives, and you took it all while complaining that we gave too much. She looked around the chamber. Now you will learn what it means to live in a galaxy where humans stop giving. The 4 humans stood together facing 300 species. Taiho spoke one last time. This inquiry is concluded. Humanity's position is clear. We will fulfill our legal obligations. We wish the Council well in all its future endeavors. The phrase, wish you well, sounded like goodbye forever. They turned and walked out of the chamber together. Behind them, the Council dissolved into chaos. Representatives argued, shouted, and blamed each other. Some tried to run after the humans, but the doors closed. Outside, in the corridor, Jiho finally spoke. That was harder than I expected. Yes, Taiho agreed quietly. But necessary. Will they understand? Hana asked. Siwu answered. Eventually. When they realize we are not coming back. The 4 humans walked away, leaving the Council to face its future alone. The Council thought they understood what was happening. They thought humanity was making a point, proving how important they were. They expected the humans to come back after the message was delivered. They were wrong. 2 weeks after the confrontation, the real collapse began. The Beltar crisis, which had been simmering for months, exploded into violence. The Vrelian mining company sent armed ships to the disputed asteroid field. The Phylaxian company responded with their own military escort. The first shots were fired on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. The Council held an emergency session. They called for both sides to stop fighting. The Vrelians and Phylaxians ignored them. The Council looked at the human delegation hopefully. Ambassador Jiho, who had replaced Taiho for this session, sat quietly in his chair. The Vrelian speaker addressed him directly. Ambassador Jiho, surely humanity can help us find peace here. Jiho stood. Article 7 of the Galactic Charter grants all member species the right to resolve disputes through established legal channels. Both parties are following proper procedure. Humanity has no comment. He sat back down. But people are dying, a Phylaxian representative shouted. Jiho did not stand this time. He simply said, yes, that is unfortunate. The word unfortunate hung in the air like poison. It was so cold, so detached, so unlike the passionate humans everyone remembered. The Council realized with horror that Jiho meant what he said. The humans thought it was unfortunate, but they did not care enough to do anything about it. 3 days later, the Beltar conflict ended when both sides exhausted their ammunition and withdrew. No one won. Everyone lost. 15 miners were dead, and the asteroid field remained disputed. In the past, humans would have negotiated for weeks to prevent even one death. Now 15 people died and humans said it was unfortunate. The pattern repeated everywhere. The Galactic Science Initiative tried to continue without human coordination. It failed within a month. Researchers from different species could not agree on anything. Meetings dissolved into arguments. Projects stalled. Important research stopped. A Krithian scientist sent a desperate message to researcher Yunji. "Please, we need your help to organize the next symposium. You always knew how to bring everyone together." Yunji's response was brief. "I am no longer involved with the initiative. I suggest you form an organizing committee. Best wishes." Best wishes. Not, "I wish I could help," or "I am sorry." Just best wishes, like you might say to a stranger on the street. The cosmic early warning system developed critical gaps. Without human telescope data, large sections of space were unwatched. The Council begged for access. Research Director Minji responded to every request the same way. Human astronomical assets are allocated to human priorities. Then the Nexian system reported an asteroid heading toward their third planet. It was not a planet killer, but it would hit a major city. They needed data from human telescopes to calculate a precise trajectory and plan an evacuation. They sent an urgent request to Minji. Her response came 3 hours later. "We have detected the asteroid in question. According to our calculations, it will impact in 72 hours. We recommend immediate evacuation of the predicted impact zone. Good luck," that was all. She gave them the warning because it cost her nothing. But she did not offer to help calculate deflection trajectories. She did not suggest solutions. She did not send human ships to assist with evacuation. She just said good luck and went back to her work. 300,000 Nexians evacuated their homes. The asteroid hit, destroying an entire city district. No one died, but countless people lost everything. In the past, humans would have sent aid, supplies, engineers to help rebuild. Now Minji sent a formal message. "Humanity extends condolences for your loss." Condolences. Like you might send to someone whose distant relative died. Not offers of help. Not aid packages, just condolences. Trade became chaotic. Human ships still ran their routes, but they stopped being flexible. Captain Doyen received a message from a Phylaxian merchant he had known for 10 years. A plague had broken out on a remote station. Medicine was needed urgently. Doyen's ship was only 2 days away. Doyen checked his schedule and replied, "My current route does not include your station. I suggest you contact the Galactic Emergency Response Network. Safe travels." The medicine arrived 6 days later instead of 2. The plague was contained, but 40 people died waiting. When the Phylaxian merchant sent an angry message to Doyun asking how he could be so heartless, Doyun replied, "I fulfilled my contract and followed my assigned route. I am not authorized to make unscheduled stops." It was true. It was legal. It was also the response of someone who had stopped caring if people lived or died. The galaxy began to realize something terrible. Humans had not been holding the galaxy together with anything special or magical. They had done it with work. Endless, boring, exhausting work. Work that no one else wanted to do. They had sent messages at midnight to prevent conflicts. They had stayed up for 30 hours to coordinate research projects. They had changed their trade routes to deliver medicine to strangers. They had studied alien cultures to understand how to mediate disputes. They had given their time, their energy, their care, and they had done it for 200 years without asking for payment or recognition. They did it because they believed the galaxy should be better. They did it because they cared. Now they had stopped caring. And the galaxy was discovering that caring cannot be forced. You cannot make someone care. You can only appreciate them when they do and hope they do not stop. But humanity had stopped. Admiral Hajun completed the reorganization of the human fleet. Every human ship was pulled back to defensive positions around human space. When asked about joint defense agreements, he said, "We will honor all treaties. If any signatory is directly attacked, we will respond according to our legal obligations." "What about indirect attacks?" someone asked. "What about threats that could become attacks?" "We will respond to direct attacks," Hajun repeated. Nothing more, the message was clear. If you are not human and you are in trouble, you are on your own unless a treaty specifically requires human help. And even then, the humans would do exactly what the treaty required and nothing extra. On Mars, Director Jiwoo's mysterious construction project was revealed. It was not a weapon. It was a university. The largest, most advanced research university in the galaxy. But the admission policy was strict. Humans only. When questioned about this, Jiwoo said, We are investing in human education. Every species has the right to educate their own people. But you always shared your knowledge before, a council representative protested. We shared it freely. Jiwoo agreed. And now we are choosing to focus our resources internally. That is our right. Slowly, carefully, systematically, humanity was building walls. Not physical walls, economic walls, social walls, educational walls. They were creating a future where humans thrived, advanced, and prospered. A future that did not include the rest of the galaxy except at arm's length, informal treaties and official agreements. The galaxy was not being attacked. It was being abandoned, and there was nothing anyone could do about it, because the humans were not breaking any laws. They were not violating any treaties. They were simply choosing not to be helpful anymore, and that choice was perfectly legal. 1 year passed since humanity stopped talking. The Galactic Council still met every quarter, but everything was different now. The chamber felt emptier even though all the seats were filled. There was less energy, less hope, less belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Ambassador Taiho attended every session, as required. He sat in his chair with Hana beside him. They listened to debates and voted on measures. Their votes were always logical, always based on law, never emotional. When the annual report was due, Taiho stood and delivered it in exactly 3 sentences. Humanity's status in the Galactic Council remains unchanged. We continue to honor all commitments and treaties. We wish the Council success in its endeavors. 3 sentences to describe an entire year. Then he sat down. The chamber was quiet. No one knew what to say anymore. The humans had not left the Council. They had not declared war. They had not broken any rules. They had simply become ghosts, present but not really there. The galaxy had changed around them. Conflicts that humans once prevented now burned slowly across multiple systems. The Vrelians and Phylaxians fought 3 more times over various disputes. Each time the Council tried to negotiate peace. Each time they failed. They did not have humans to show them how to find middle ground, how to make both sides feel heard, how to turn enemies into partners. Small wars broke out. Not big enough to threaten the galaxy, but big enough to kill thousands. The humans did nothing unless their own territories were threatened. Admiral Hajun's fleets patrolled human borders and ignored everything beyond them. When a Nexian colony was raided by pirates just outside human space, the Nexian government begged for help. Hajun's response was formal. The attack occurred outside treaty-protected zones. We cannot assist. The Nexian ambassador accused humans of having no heart. Hajun did not argue. He simply repeated, "We cannot assist." Scientific progress slowed to a crawl. Without human coordination, researchers from different species rarely collaborated. Without human energy pushing everyone to try harder and dream bigger, most scientists focused on safe, easy projects. The galaxy was still advancing, but slowly. So slowly. Research director Minji published a paper that could have revolutionized energy production. It was brilliant work, possibly worth several Nobel Prizes, but it was written entirely in Korean, with complex technical language that even translation computers struggled with. When asked to present it at the Galactic Science Conference, she declined politely. "I am too busy with my current projects," she said. The paper is available for anyone who wishes to read it. 3 Krithian scientists spent 6 months trying to understand her work. They failed. The knowledge existed, but it might as well have been locked in a vault. Humanity had discovered something wonderful, and they were keeping it to themselves. Not out of malice, just out of disinterest in sharing. Trade networks struggled. Human traders still moved goods, but they stopped being the galaxy's safety net. Captain Doyen flew his routes with perfect efficiency. He delivered every contracted cargo on time. But when stations called asking for help with emergency supplies, he referred them to official channels. Those channels were slow and expensive. In the past, Doyen would have helped. Now he just followed his schedule. A young Phylaxian trader trying to copy human success asked Doyen for advice. Doyen was polite. He answered the specific questions asked, but he did not volunteer extra information. He did not share the tricks and shortcuts that made human traders so successful. When the young Phylaxian failed and lost his ship, Doyen sent a brief message. "Sorry for your loss. Best wishes in your future endeavors." The galactic news networks tried to interview humans to understand this change, to find some hope that the old humanity would return. Every request was denied. "We prefer to keep our privacy," was the standard response. One brave journalist managed to corner Governor Nari during a public event. "Governor, the galaxy misses the humanity we used to know. Do you miss the way things were?" Nari smiled. It was a sad smile, but also firm. "We miss being appreciated. We miss being respected. When we have that, perhaps things will change. Until then, we are content with our current path." "But people are suffering without human help," the journalist pressed. "People suffered with our help too," Nari replied. "The difference is that now we are not blamed for it." "Excuse me, I have other appointments." She walked away, leaving the journalist with no answers. That clip was played across the galaxy. It was the most human emotion anyone had seen in a year. And even that was just a glimpse. A tiny crack in the wall humanity had built around themselves. In human space, life was better than it had ever been. Earth was prosperous. The colonies thrived. Mars University, now complete, was producing incredible research. Human culture flourished. Art, music, literature, science, all of it bloomed like flowers in spring. But it all happened behind that invisible wall. Aliens could visit human worlds, but they were tourists now, not friends. They could buy human goods, but at market prices, not friendly discounts. They could read human research, but only what was published in Standard Galactic, which was less and less. The human population grew. The economy expanded. New colonies were founded. Admiral Haijun's fleet became the most advanced in the galaxy, better than the combined forces of any 3 other species. But those forces stayed home, protecting human interests, unconcerned with anything else. Researcher Yunji made another breakthrough, this one in medical technology. It could extend life by 20 years for most species. She published the basic theory in Standard Galactic. But the practical application, the details needed to actually use it, those were published only in Korean. When other species begged for translation, she said, "Translation services are available for hire. I am not a translator. It was not cruelty. It was not revenge. It was just indifference." Humans had stopped caring whether other species succeeded or failed, lived or died, grew or stagnated. The Galactic Council finally understood the truth. Humanity had not been preparing for war. They had been preparing for divorce. Not a violent separation, but a cold legal one. They would honor the contracts. They would maintain formal relationships. But the love was gone, and love could not be commanded to return. In the council chambers, where human voices once rang with passion and hope, there was only silence now. Taeho and Hana sat in their seats session after session, saying nothing unless required. Other representatives stopped trying to engage them. What was the point? Late one night, a Vrelian counselor found Taeho alone in a corridor. The Vrelian was old, had been on the council for 300 years. He remembered when humans first joined, so eager and full of dreams. "Ambassador, I have a question," the old Vrelian said. "Of course," Taeho replied politely. "Will humanity ever care about us again?" Taeho looked at him for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was not angry. It was just tired. "We cared for 200 years. We cared so much it hurt. We gave everything, and it was never enough." He paused. "Maybe someday we will care again. But not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe not for a long, long time." "What do you want from us?" the Vrelian asked desperately. Taeho smiled, and it was the saddest smile. "Nothing. That is the problem. We wanted friendship. We wanted respect. We wanted to be valued, not just used. But you could not give us that. So now we want nothing at all." He walked away, leaving the old Vrelian standing in the empty corridor. The next day, that Vrelian submitted his resignation from the council. He was too old to watch the galaxy crumble, too tired to be part of a council that had lost its heart. And humanity, the species that had once been that heart, sat in their designated seats and felt nothing. They attended meetings. They filed reports. They fulfilled obligations. They existed in the galaxy but were no longer part of it. The fear that had gripped the council a year ago had transformed into something worse. It had become resignation, acceptance, understanding that this was the new reality, a galaxy where humans existed but did not care. Some species tried to fill the void humans left. None succeeded. The galaxy learned to function at a lower level, to accept more conflict, less progress, dimmer hopes. They learned to live in a colder universe, and in human space behind their walls humanity thrived. They built. They created. They loved each other. They dreamed. But those dreams no longer included the stars beyond their borders. Those dreams were only for themselves now. The galaxy had wanted humanity to be less involved. They got their wish, and they would live with that wish for generations to come, in a universe made smaller by human absence.